Welcome to my Appalachian home. Each week we journey into the heart of Appalachia. Its stories, its music, its people, and its traditions. From the front porch to the winding back roads, I'll share the rich tapestry of life of this one-of-a-kind region that I call home. Settle in and discover the spirit of Appalachia, one story at a time. Hey folks, a few weeks ago I got to sit down with my new friend, Jonathan Yudkin, Nashville producer, musician, and the driving force behind what's happening in Nashville today. He's also the producer of the new Marty Falle record. And this is how that went. Rick Dollar here for the Rick Dollar Show. And thanks for joining us today. My guest is Mr. Jonathan Yudkin. Now, if you haven't heard of this gentleman, it's probably on purpose because he doesn't want to get phone calls from everybody that thinks they're a musician. So anyway, Jonathan, how's it going, man?
Excellent. Good morning to you, Rick. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to this for a while, ever since you started doing this with Marty Falle.
Yeah.
And, so this is a pleasure, and thanks a bunch. We're going to have a good time.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for taking out the time. Now, born 1960 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I didn't mean to put the year in there, but hey, what are we going to do?
Survival is the key to the benefits program, as I like to think.
That's so true. Oh, man. But you have made a name for yourself in the music industry through, I think, a lot of the artists that you've worked with. I've got this massive list here, and I'm not being facetious like I normally am. This is all truth. I mean, just hold on to your underwear. Okay, we're talking about Cher, Kelly Pickler, Rascal Flatts, Bon Jovi, Taylor Swift, Jewel, Kelly Clarkson, Carrie Underwood, Kenny Rogers, Faith Hill, Shania Twain, Blake Shelton, Winona Judd, Jessica Simpson. I'm only halfway done, by the way. Steven Tyler, Travis Tritt, Megadeth, Keith Urban, Kenny Loggins, Richard Marx, Leanne Rimes, Big and Rich, Toby Keith, Billy Ray Cyrus. Let me get some air. Okay. Reba McEntire, Lady Antebellum, Tammy Wynette, which I thought was kind of a cool thing.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah. Pink, John Hartford, Robert Earl Keen, Shelby Lynn, Chris Ledoux, Jars of Clay, Guy Clark, Neil Diamond, Trace Adkins, Black Hawk, and Taylor Swift again, but there's a little ... thing there, which tells me that I'm not even close to being finished with this list. So
no.
the point being, you are the guy that pulls the strings in Nashville and all parts in between. I mean, I've been wanting to do this ever since I met Marty Falle, and Marty was always telling me, "Oh, you got to meet my producer, Jonathan Yudkin. This dude is incredible." And I was like, "Really? What's going on?" I mean, but then we would go to him, and then he would talk about you later. And just meeting you, I think, I can see that you can tell when people have that thing, and you have that thing. Okay. And
thank you.
So when did you get involved in music and know that that's what you wanted to do?
Well, I grew up in a music family in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Dad was a conductor and music teacher. Mom sang opera and taught science.
Gotcha.
And the whole family played. And when my dad was also the choir director, of which my mom was the featured soloist. She was fabulous. And so it was just constant music. My dad also taught lessons in the basement on weeknights, and met, great up and coming players in the Philadelphia area. I knew at 4 years old I wanted to play violin. It was that simple. I'm not sure why. I know I like the look of it. I like the contour of it. It's a beautiful design.
It is.
The violins, the violas, the cellos, the string basses. It's just a beautiful design. You can't get around it. And so for whatever reason I was attracted to it, it seemed easy to me.
Yeah.
And classical music is, the best way to start. I tell every young musician
Mm-hmm.
that learn the basics and then take it from there.
Yeah.
It's like learning anything. If you're informed, if you've uh, learned it, if you've been taught it, understand it, then you make an intelligent decision, as with anything.
Yeah.
And then you can say, I like this, I don't like this. Obviously, I liked it. And it was, yes, in the beginning, it was just lessons and recitals and every week and practicing. And I didn't like that part of it, but you did it.
Yeah.
And it seemed to come very naturally. And then I heard the blues. And for me, because the music that was being played around the house, my older brother would bring in the Who and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and then all these great, rockin', super rockin' bands. Yes, very tastefully constructed music. Um, and it was James Taylor. It was Sweet Baby James, the first record that had Steamroller Blues on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hearing this and I'm thinking, what is that? I am a, suburban white Jewish guy in Philadelphia. What is the blues? And I didn't know. And this was my first experience at hearing it with full horns and everything.
Yeah.
And so I started gravitating towards that. I discovered bluegrass.
Yeah.
And that was the fault of David Bromberg. Do you remember David Bromberg?
Yes, I do, actually.
The David Bromberg band. He had a hit called Sharon about a stripper. But he was a fantastic studio musician in New York, and he formed his own band. And he did this thing where he had a three-piece horn section and a full band. And then halfway through the show, the guys would put down horns and pick up banjos and fiddles and mandolins, and it turned into a Celtic delight. The drummer shifted over to hand percussion, and it was so inspiring. He had a particular album called Midnight on the Water, mm-hmm. which I just loved. And I learned all these fiddle pieces that he was playing and the blues pieces he was playing. Because listening to him, I discovered he did a version of Such a Night by Dr. John. Right. He did Keys to the Highway, the Bosnian Hawks, smoking Detroit blues. And all this music. He did a version of, what was it? Jerry Jeff Walker's Mr. Bojangles. Oh, yeah. And so all these influences were coming in by way of this one guy. And so I graduated high school. I went to Temple University for anthropology, which is a whole nother interesting story. It's, anthropology, all the girls look like Luca Brasi. So, I don't want to go there. And switched over to jazz at Rutgers. And then I formed a band in New Jersey. And so I was 18. I had a full-time band. I kept going to Rutgers as long as I could. But when you're working nights, 6, 7 nights a week, it's tough. And then we became the house band at the Lone Star Cafe when it was in Manhattan on the corner of 5th and 13th. This was the legendary room. And so we had the house band there. And the house acts also included Kinky Friedman, mm-hmm. The great Kinky Friedman. Besides being an icon in country music, he was a best-selling author, writing mystery novels. Wow. And so once again, influx of all of this music. We were opening shows for Albert Collins, the great Albert Collins and the Icebreakers, the master of the Telecaster. What a guy to hang with and have a drink with. Lonnie Brooks, the blues man. And eventually, after 3 years of that time in Manhattan, which was great, I got offered a job to come to Nashville by one of the acts we opened for. And, I said, yeah, sure. I'm 21. I want to, see what's in Nashville. Moved to Nashville, was pretty disillusioned for about the first 4 months of working there because it was still a different era. It was the end of the 70s era. Mm-hmm. And nothing against it. It just hadn't found itself. It had gone an attempt to be pop, but Nashville was not capable of being pop yet. And I was a huge fan of the great Leon Russell. Oh, yeah. And it turns out that he lived there now. He moved. He left L.A. to get away from what was happening there, and he buys Boodle O'Brien's house. The guy that wrote Rocky Top. He buys Boodle O'Brien's house on Old Hickory Lake. I went to see him at the Tennessee State Fair that summer, and I just dreamed of, wow, what a job that would be.
Yeah.
He still had the Newgrass Revival playing with him. I don't know if you remember that it was Leon and the Newgrass for a while.
Yeah. I'm John
What
Cowan.
a crazy band that was.
Yeah, John Cowan's been on the show many times. So
yeah, oh, he's wonderful, amazing musician. Sam Bush, is just like,
oh my gosh,
what a great character, great musician. And but one of the guys in the band I was still playing with, who was the very sweet and very country Christy Lane. That was my job to Nashville. Bless her heart. She got me here. And one of the musicians in that band told me that, hey, I know you're a fan of Leon. I heard he's going to put a new band together, and you should try to get an audition. Oh. And it was just, yeah, right, like that's going to happen. But I called, tracked down Keith Case. I don't know if you knew who Keith Case was. Stone Mountain Booking. He was booking a lot of big acts at the time, and including, I think at that time, I think he was working with Kathy Mattea, the great Appalachia sweetheart, who I ended up, that's another story coming up, but told me that, go ahead and try to get an audition. So I called Keith Case, and the funny thing was the only name I had to drop was Christy Lane as a reference. Because they said, who've you played with? And I said, well, this great band in Jersey, but you're not going to know us. So I dropped Christy Lane's name. Well, Leon was completely into gospel music as well as everything else. And he must have thought that I was some, gospel musician that might be cool to have in his new band. So I get an audition. I go up to Old Hickory. I meet him. I'm like completely starstruck because Leon was a superstar. I mean, he's written some of the greatest songs of all time. Singing This Song for You, This Masquerade, My Lonesome, My Cricket and Me, Manhattan Island Serenade. Oh my goodness, I just love that. He was every night he would say, see it, broken van, thinking of you again. I mean, he was amazing every night, and I would melt. So we hit it off, and he realized, no, I'm a Yankee, suburbanite, crazy musician, but we had a musical connection, and he did me the greatest favor of my life by taking me on when I was 21 years old, and joined the Paradise Tour, which was a 10-piece band, which was just fantastic. It was 4 girls, 2 percussionists, a trombone player, a steel player, a full-time harmonica player, the great John Juke Logan, 3-piece suits every night and a double stack of Fenders for his harmonica. The guy was a class act. And then Leon's job was fantastic. It ran for about 4 years. And then I realized that things were probably going to change. And I asked his understanding that I was going to move on. And he was, totally cool with everything. The guy was so great.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's when things moved into a different direction. I wanted to start doing more studio work because I was dabbling in it, and studio was really a tough nut to crack here in town. There were so many amazing session players, so many studios. This was the mid 80s, and you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting the studio. I mean, you could drive to Music Row, which still had empty lots all over it. Nobody wanted them. You'd park, you'd walk to your 10 o'clock, have lunch, walk to your 2 o'clock, have dinner, and walk to your 6 o'clock, and walk back to your car and drive home, where it would take 12 minutes. That was Nashville in the 80s. And the amount of recording that was going on was staggering. And it was leading up to things that happened in 89 and 90. But I lucked out by, it's all been, so much luck and taking advantage of situations. I met the great Doug Dillard from the Dillards. The banjo player. And Doug and I just became fast pals. And I worked with him everything I could. And it was a wonderful learning experience. Of course, I grew up watching the Andy Griffith Show. So I knew who the Darlin family was. And here was Doug. And by him, I, of course, met Rodney and Mitch and Dean and all those guys, and became in with the Dillards. Oh my goodness, how cool was this? Well, even cooler was meeting John Hartford.
Yeah.
And John, again, like in Leon's caliber, John was, that caliber in a slightly different genre. Of course, he wrote Gentle on My Mind
Right.
and Aeroplane. But John was a brilliant class act. He
Yeah.
was just brilliant. And I started working with him. The bass player was the great Roy Husky Jr., who in fact was Junior Husky Jr. And working with Roy, of course, I knew who Roy was, and this was the opportunity to be one-on-one, hands-on with the great Roy.
Yeah.
And so John's band developed into the Hartford String Band, where we had triple fiddles, and all the music, John's riverboat styling, took over, and he wanted that riverboat triple fiddle thing, and it was all written. So all the fiddle players, were readers,
Mm-hmm.
and we would work the music out every night around his table on the river, and make sure that the harmonies were perfect. Like we'd play them, we'd correct it, and then the music would be right, and he'd write it out in his calligraphy style. Oh, I've got stacks of manuscripts that nobody's ever heard
Wow.
of John Hartford fiddle tunes, which was the reason we actually hit it off. I met him at a show with the Dillards, and he just walked up to me and he said, "I hear you can read," because so few bluegrass players read music. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Absolutely." And we sat down and we started reading his original fiddle tunes. He just wanted somebody to play with him. Boom. I mean, 1,000 fiddle tunes later, we had the Hartford String Band, and it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. John taught me one of the best lessons I ever learned, where we would be worried about work and things like that. Is enough work? And he would look at us, and he would, as a leader, which is what leaders supposed to do. You advise the people that look up to you. You help them with knowledge that you've amassed over your life. And he said, in a highly competitive arena like the music business, either do what nobody else wants to do or do what nobody else can do. And that one line just changed it all for me. At that moment, I decided I'm going to do string sections by myself. And because I also grew up listening to Walter Carlos, the great electronic musician who did the Clockwork Orange soundtrack.
Yeah.
Everything was him. He was playing full Beethoven and Bach scores by himself on a synthesizer, one track at a time. And I thought, okay, how cool is this? Paul Buckmaster did it with Elton John. Robbie Steinhardt did it with Kansas. You create your own string section. Well, I love doing it. I absolutely, think that it's a labor of love, and most people don't want to do it. It's too much time. It's too much effort. I relish every second of it.
Do you think people see that as too much of a challenge for them, or?
I don't know whether it's the learning curve, the instrument possession curve, the having a studio curve.
Yeah.
All you have to have that. You have to learn enough viola and cello and string bass.
That's
You
right.
have to have enough knowledge of the triad harmonies. I love the Bach style of the logic in his harmonies. It just became such an addiction for me
Mm-hmm.
that I could add to the list of things to do. Was I'll do fiddle, I'll do banjo, I'll do mandolin, but I also do an entire string section, and it just kept developing to the point where when I did Jesus Take the Wheel
Mm-hmm.
for Carrie Underwood, um, it was just that was the calling card forever. And plenty of things have added on to that, especially the Taylor Swift Taylor's version stuff of replacing all of the original, because I did the original records with her. That's why she called me back. Of replacing all the original keyboard strings with my strings, and just doing it again. But back to the 80s, it was the Dillard and Hartford, also Dickie Betts from the Allman Brothers. He put a
Yeah.
new band together. And so I got to work with him for a few years, with the late, great Johnny Neal on keys, Russ Paul, the steel player, amazing band. And then I hooked up with Robert Earl Keen by doing, we used to have so many TV shows here in Nashville when we had the Nashville Network.
Exactly.
And one of those shows was called New Country. And if you had a new album, you went over to the cannery and they set up. And TNN had great equipment, and it looked and it sounded good. It wasn't, like the hee-haw level stuff. It was, and nothing wrong with hee-haw. I mean, God, to watch Roy Clark,
Exactly.
come on, that guy was
Buck Owens
and Buck, and the whole deal. Loved them all. So we were taping New Country with Robert Earl Keen, and then we just, we kind of hit it off. I said, do you have a band? He says, no, I don't have a band. I'm just a soloist. That's the way you talk, Robert. It's a 5-pound bass, big as a goddamn baby. I think that was his shtick. I don't think he talked that way at all.
I think so too.
But so we put a band together with him. I got Roy Husky, and we put a power trio. I likened it to Cream, Clapton and Jack Bruce. And we went out and we did some Austin City Limits, and some Texas Connection was another show that TNN had, and people went apeshit over Robert Earl. And we did the live album at Sons of Herman Hall in Dallas, and that simply elevated him to the new god of Texas music.
I'm telling you.
And he has held that position ever since.
I'm telling you. It's ridiculous, man, because I would have never known that, a guy that just had something. Just, you couldn't put your finger on it though. I mean, I know it was, you're talking about Texas music here. There's a lot of people that come from Texas, but in between, I don't know what happens. Maybe their manager says, "Hey, you're too hicky, or you're too Texas, or you're too this or too that." But I don't either.
Robert is so well read, and of course, his roommate growing up in college was Lyle Lovett. So they wrote that Front Porch song, which was the first thing that surfaced for both of them.
Yeah.
This old porch is just 5 years, 20 days to Texas. It was so comfortable to listen to.
Yeah.
And the stories that they would tell around it. So Lyle started coming around because he didn't have a record deal yet. He had the hair, but he didn't have a record deal. So he'd hang out with Robert because Robert had a deal before him on Philo Rounder.
Robert had the hat.
So we got to know Lyle. And then, of course, Lyle took the industry by storm with Cowboy Man.
He did.
And then came to Nashville and just steamrolled it all, man. What a beautiful story with Lyle Lovett. He even got to marry Julia Roberts for a short time. Wow. Success story. But I digress.
Yeah. That's a whole nother podcast.
So Robert, and of course, recording with him, I recorded the live album with him, with Roy Husky Jr. Yeah. And I mean, we were flying out back in the Nashville still had its old airport at that point, and this is probably 88, 89. And back then, Roy would fly with his bass. Wow. And so they'd buy a ticket for him, and he'd put it in the seat next to him and buckle it in. That's how upright players did it. Yes, it was a 3/4 size. It was not a full-size bass. Yeah, but 3/4 is still pretty, that's definitely the size of your basic Luke Bryan kind of guy. And so we get to the airport, and we were going to fly to Dallas and to do 2 nights of recording. Jim Rooney was producing that night. Yeah. And they wouldn't let him on the plane with the bass. Somebody had changed the policy. And so this is before cell phones. This is before everything. We're on the payphone. Robert, what do we do? What do we do? He says, well, Jonathan, you come in and ticket. They buy him a ticket. They buy a ticket for the bass again. They won't let him on. And we're playing that night.
Gosh.
And so finally, it's getting to be like 1 PM. And Robert says, Roy, just get on a plane. We will rent you a bass. Now, telling Roy Husky, we're going to rent you a bass is, it's not a great thing. Roy has amazing basses that belong to his father. But there was no choice. Everything was set to record that night.
Yeah.
So he finally gets there. And we run to our hotel to get changed so we could go to the Sons of Herman Hall Sons of Herman, by the way, is sort of like a Knights of Columbus, but
I got you.
of German origin, which so much of Texas has, like Green Hall and things like that. They have this, very strong German presence. Well, the Sons of Herman with two R's was one of those. So we run to the hotel. Roy and I are sharing a room. We throw open the door just to get cleaned up, and there's a black cat sitting on the bed. Now, in 1,000 hotel rooms that I've walked into in my career, there's never been a black cat sitting on the bed.
Never.
That was pretty trippy. But then we went on to create 2 nights of recording that changed Robert forever, and created the superfans, the Robert Keane superfans, and one of which was Jason Michael Carroll, who went on to become a star as well. And it was fantastic. I was getting enough of traveling. I really wanted to do more studio work, and I also tried working with Jerry Reed for a little bit, because I had heard that it was such a great players band, and I watched some videos, and he used to have guys like Steve Davidowski from the Dixie Dregs, playing in the band. Amazing band. For some reason, I went to check it out. We made an agreement. I started working with him, and he changed his whole routine and format. So it wasn't a place that I wanted to stay. So I kind of gave up the road, and it was just going to be studio work. And then I accidentally met Kathy Mattea. And
what an accident.
What an accident. As a matter of fact, I'd like to say that this guitar that I'm playing, this lovely Guild, is the Kathy Mattea guitar she used on 18 Wheels and a Dozen Roses video, on any video that she made before I started with her. She was using this guitar in the video. It's a Guild. It's a beautiful Guild, but she didn't like it. She wanted a Taylor, so I bought it from her. And Kathy and I just kind of hit it off. We were the same age, the same attitude. Her, West Virginia. Coming up through the demos, I had worked with her doing demos for a while. Demos are, of course, when writers want to make a demonstration recording of a song that they can pitch then to an artist. You do a demo, and demos were the meat and potatoes of this industry for studio players for 30 plus years. And then, of course, the industry changed, the budgets dried up, and now people do demos on their laptops. So,
and they're crazy.
But the demo arena was where these incredible musicians were developing, because we were doing 3 sessions a day every day. And if it was demos, we were doing 5 songs in 3 hours. Dang. So your brain was just slamming with music. You were working with great up-and-coming producers that you didn't even know. Like, we're working with Dan Huff, this guy Dan Huff, Well, Dan Huff goes on, to become doing things with this young writer, John Rich, who nobody heard of before. Or Jeffrey Steele, man. Did you know about Jeffrey Steele? It was a incredibly successful songwriter, but as an artist, oh my goodness. And you get into the studio with these cats, and the brain fun, what they call the brain trust of everybody, because we record live. Everything's in the moment. So you listen to a song, you're handed a chart. We use numbered charts. And you have about 2 minutes to think of what you want to do. And then drummer counts it off, and you're playing. It's live. And the entire song, if we're doing 5 hours, 5 songs in 3 hours, what's the math on that? 23, 27 minutes per song. Something completely, like top to bottom. Not the vocals, because the vocalists will come in later. And the demo singers at that time were Garth Brooks and Alan Jackson and Trisha Yearwood. And, these were, the last great demo singer was, oh God, the redneck woman. What's her name?
Gretchen Wilson.
Gretchen Wilson. Yeah. That was sort of like the end of the great demo era of these amazing singers who learned their craft the same way we learned our craft, by doing it all day, every day. Wow. Learning how to control your voice, learning how to do different kinds of voices, and most importantly, not to blow your voice, and destroy your hands, by playing incorrectly. In order to sustain this, you have to learn these things. So the nonstop learning process has been fantastic. Playing with musicians who, the great J.T. Cornfloss, the electric guitar player, good heavens, to be with him every day, and you never think that is ever going to end. Unfortunately, it did.
Mm-hmm.
But I have so many recordings to listen to with JT playing on them that are such a pleasure. And so here came Kathy, and it was an amazing band, amazing music, and she was the sweetheart of television. And we must have done 1,000 TV shows, most of which I recorded on a VHS. And one cold winter, I transferred them all to digital. And I'm just amazed, at the stuff that we did.
Yeah.
Um, like,
and this is the whole thing that made me want to talk to you. Okay. You've almost been this keeper of history almost in Nashville, because growing up, it was Glenn Campbell and all those guys in my household. And now we can talk to a guy that had a lot to do with or was around to see that firsthand stuff happening in that era of Nashville. So I'm going to ask you one question. The Nashville of yesteryear, how has it changed from today, other than digital?
well, we're in a completely different um, I mean, the environment
Mm-hmm.
is utterly different.
Yeah.
If you were to like go into cryo sleep, in the end of in 1999, and then wake up today,
Mm-hmm.
you'd be like completely dumbfounded.
Yeah.
I always simply say how fortunate and lucky that I've been
Mm-hmm.
to have experienced a good 35 years of the golden era
Oh,
of Nashville music creation. It transitioned from the 80s, and then when the 90s came, all of a sudden songs and talent were more important than looks,
yeah.
and more important than trend, and more important. When Garth came on the scene, and all of a sudden you had focus on people like Mary Chapin Carpenter
Mm-hmm.
and Kathy Mattea, for that matter,
Right.
Foster and Lloyd, Jim Lauderdale, and some of these have gone on into Americana. But these were country stars for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Garth just kept going and going and going and going, um, left them all in the dust.
Mm-hmm.
But the focus on talent, like we still really try to do live recording here.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I do with Marty Falle is live in the studio at County Q Recording,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where you get the magic.
Exactly.
You have, so as those things dwindle, a lot of people are turning to making tracks in a box,
Yeah.
where like on a computer, on a laptop. So the human factor is slowly eroding. We have oversaturation in everything.
Yeah.
I look back, and yes, I am older at this point, but I look back on growing up where television had three channels.
Mm-hmm.
You had three channels in PBS, so four channels, and then your UHF round antenna on the top. Who knows what you could pick up on a good day? You might get, Jersey or Delaware, coming into Philly. But they were always static filled, and they were always Slim Whitman records and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And remember the 800 number records? You had Slim Whitman, you had the Harmonic Cats.
K-Tail.
I do believe you had Christy Lane.
Yeah. K-Tail
Selling
Records.
K-Tel Records. Oh
Dude
my
from
goodness.
K-Tail Records. It's Slim Whitman. Yeah.
Do you know that K-Tel had a label?
No, I didn't.
And early on, when I started doing things around town, when we had during fanfare
Yeah.
and CRS would be happening, and I was hired to play for different acts who wanted to showcase for radio events during that week. And I think it was at the Maxwell House at that time. This is mid 80s. And I went into a room, and I hear, you're going to play with this guy. His name was Tim McGraw, and I mean, he was young. He was like late 20s, I think, maybe mid 20s. And he was on K-Tel Records.
Wow.
That's who was sponsoring that particular showcase that day at the Maxwell House.
Isn't that crazy?
But the difference, for me then and now is the very personal level of interaction and communication that we had back then.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen now because it can't. It was such a different environment. There was a warmth. There was a sense of community. Yes, business was always, crummy. I mean, there was always the shitty end of the business stick, for sure.
Yeah.
But the majority of it was still being run well. The machine was working well, where you'd bring in money to finance the label, to finance the artist, to finance the publishing. This was all money that was being used, and everything was union recording. I am a proud executive board member of Musicians Local 257, which has done more for Nashville than they'll ever want to realize.
Oh, yeah.
Being responsible for keeping so many of the great musicians here, or giving them reason to move here from LA. When a lot of the Wrecking Crew guys started moving here because we were doing it correctly.
Hey, folks, we'll be right back with more from Jonathan Yudkin. Hey, folks, if you're looking for a place that's got that perfect mix of mountain charm, music, and outdoor adventure, let me tell you about Marion, Virginia. It's this beautiful little town tucked right in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and when you walk through their historic downtown, you'll feel like you've stepped into a storybook. Boutique shops, local dining, and that small town hospitality that makes you want to stay a while. If you're a music lover, Marion is home to the legendary Lincoln Theater, where Song of the Mountains is filmed. That's a nationally televised concert series showcasing some of the best in bluegrass and Americana music, and you'll be right in the heart of it. And for outdoor fans, you're just a minute from Hungry Mother State Park. We're talking hiking, biking, fishing, and even a sandy beach where you can just relax. Plus, the Appalachian Trail and Mount Rogers National Recreation Area are right there too. So whether it's live music, mountain air, or just slowing down a bit, Marion, Virginia's got it all. Check it out at visitmarionva.com. and start planning your getaway.
Want to make your advertising dollar go farther? Just go to therickdollarshow.com and fill out the contact information. Someone from our advertising department will contact you as soon as they finish their lunch. The Rick Dollar Show, helping your business be more successful.
You know, when it comes to music, there's nothing like playing an instrument that has soul in it. And that's exactly what you'll find at Randy Wood Guitars. For decades, Randy Wood has been building and restoring some of the finest guitars, mandolins, and banjos that you'll ever put your hands on. His instruments have been played by legends and trusted by pickers who know the difference. When you walk into Randy Wood Guitars down in Bloomingdale, Georgia, you're not just stepping into a shop. You're stepping into a tradition. You'll see handcrafted instruments, hear incredible stories from Randy himself, and maybe even catch some live music in their intimate pickin' parlor. It's a place where music is alive, where history and craftsmanship meet. So whether you're a collector, a performer, or just someone who loves the sound of wood and strings coming together, check out Randy Wood Guitars. Visit them in person or online at randywoodguitars.com, where great music begins.
The Rick Dollar Show.
Hey folks, let me tell you about one of my favorite spots in Pigeon Forge, the Local Goat. This place is a true scratch-made kitchen where every single dish is crafted fresh daily. We're talking hand-patted gourmet burgers, perfectly cut steaks, fall-off-the-bone ribs, and even made-from-scratch desserts that'll have you coming back for more. But it's not just the food, it's the vibe. The Local Goat is filled with artwork from local artists, So when you walk in, you're not only getting a great meal, you're getting a taste of the community. It's family friendly. It's fun. It's the perfect place whether you're grabbing a casual bite, celebrating with friends, or just looking for a cold craft beer to go with that burger. So next time you're in Pigeon Forge, make sure you stop by the local goat, the place where locals eat and visitors love. Hey, let's get back to this conversation with Jonathan Yudkin.
But as I was saying, we were talking, about the differences between Nashville then and now. My then being I've been here for 44 years, so it doesn't go back further than that. But during that time period, and one of the things, Rick, man, and I don't mean to put down anybody or put down the industry or anything. What I started missing was authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that made me gravitate back towards bluegrass was the fact that there's nowhere to hide in bluegrass.
Not really.
You're right out front, and you either got it or you don't. There's no magic. There's no manipulation that's going to matter in the studio, and looks are not as important as the music itself.
Well, let me ask you this. Here's what I'm seeing, just being in the industry. I'm in the bluegrass industry 99% of the time. Do you think that's the reason that a lot of these larger acts are calling guys like Billy Strings and people like that and saying, "Hey, do you want to do a song together? Or do you want to play on my song?" Or, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm seeing a lot of this. I mean, Post Malone he did it on a couple of songs, with Billy. And I'm just that's what I'm seeing. Authenticity is a huge.
Yeah, I hope that you're right on that. I do. I don't know what the reasons are behind some of the artists wanting to do duets.
Yeah.
But I know that so many artists over the years have wanted to be part of the bluegrass world.
Right.
Because it's a very down to earth place to be.
Oh,
and of course, Marty Falle has discovered, I've been working with Marty for 15 years doing, helping him with country and country rock and Americana. And one day we sat down and we were like, your songs would be incredibly fresh and exciting in bluegrass.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the things I love most about Marty is that he writes, songs about life. It's not the usual style of bluegrass writing. Mm-hmm. What a great storyteller, and his period pieces are so nice and real, and he makes such a great identification with Appalachian sound. And there's so much to draw from. And to me, well, in most cases, you can't change history, but you can't. And there's a believability factor woven into that. That I love about it. So the authenticity kind of comes along with it.
Yeah.
And so maybe, a lot of artists over the years have done bluegrass projects. I remember, oh geez.
We had Zach Top.
Mm-hmm.
I guess when he did his first bluegrass record with RBR recording, I knew the owner of the label at that time, and he said, "Man, I got this new guy, Zach Top. You need to talk to him for me," and blah, blah, blah. And we just ended up doing all kinds of stuff together. And, I got to know Zach Top for who he was. He would come in from work, and he was doing construction at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he would pop open a Coors Light. This is not a Coors Light can, but he would set it down,
Neither is this.
Blast it and set it down, and we just have a chat, man, about what his record was about, or what his new single was, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But authenticity was grade A number one with that gentleman, and it's still there. I mean, you can tell with what he does, every song he writes, everything he performs.
That's good. There's hope.
I think so. I mean, I really do.
Well, you know, the authenticity also being in artists writing their own material.
Exactly.
Because it's coming from the heart, it's coming from life experience, and it helps me believe in them as an artist, not just as something to look at and think that that's cool, or gorgeous, or whatever the case may be. I am looking for music when I want to listen to an artist.
Right.
And one of the things that drove me over, I mean, just real briefly, I mean, for the last 8-9 years, I've been heavily involved in Latin music, in Latin pop music, and Mexican norteño music.
Right.
And besides opening 1,000 doors of music to learn, the learning curve is huge. But the artists themselves, you know, have come up through the ranks. Number one, the guy that I just finished with after a while, Ricardo Arjona. Arjona is a household name in every Latin family worldwide. And he's almost my age. He has been through every rank that there is, up the ladder, clawing his way up to being a superstar. And one of the things that impressed me, we did a recording session, and we hit it off at a recording session. It was like, I believe you. I don't even understand all of the words because my Spanish is not, you know, even now, you know, it's not fluent as it should be. I can make my way around the language, but I could feel it, you know, and I knew that he was authentic as the songs. And then the norteño artist that I just finished with, Alfredo Olivas. He's only 31, and yet for the last 10 years, he's been on top of the norteño charts. That's all of northern Mexico is norteño music. What a fantastic experience that was. Your typical norteño band is 26 musicians.
Oh my God.
So it's like having, you know, the band that I'm used to, the black hat guys, and instead of guitars, it's bajo quinto and bajo sexto. But then the other half of the band is like a drum line. So it's about 14 horns and percussionists.
Man, you're talking about wrangling cats.
Wow. And it goes without a hitch every night. And most of the shows that you play in norteño music are called palenques, which are in the round. So you're in the bottom of the circle and the audience is around you going up. So you're in a circle at the bottom and the entire band is facing inward. And so I've got, like, you know, 5 valve trombones facing me on the other side of the circle. But the energy and the passion, you know, it is what I was missing in so much music here. These guys made me believe in the authenticity. So Marty is a great example of authenticity. You know, his songs come so from his heart, from his experiences, from his desire to create as a writer, you know, and I'm very, again, lucky and fortunate to be around artists like this. And it's been that way, you know, from one leapfrog to another of very authentic people. And, you know, again, I've been lucky that I hope this continues for another 20 years or so. I do my best to continue live recording with anything I produce. Because it matters to me, and it's not the way a lot of people are doing it now. If I could still record the tape to a 2-inch reel, I would. But at least we're still, you know, we're recording to Pro Tools, but we're still using, you know, an analog Trident board and all of the analog outboard gear that I love, and real microphones and separation in a room so that you can record live. And those things matter, and I'll continue to press that, because you learn from the masters. And that's been another, you know, great fortunate thing for me, is learning from Leon Russell and learning from John Hartford and Dickie Betts and Robert Keane for all of his, you know, Texasisms. You learn from him. You know, you learn about Medina Lake. You know, you learn about, you know, Luby's, going to Luby's on a Sunday after church, you know, things that I would never have known about, you know. And of course the Latinos, that's just another incredible tidal wave of learning. And, you know, one of those secrets people want to know about longevity in the music business, it's so much, in my opinion, it's so much better to be a player and not an artist.
Yeah.
Because when you're an artist, everything is focused on you. And then when you're the player behind the guy, behind the guy, behind the guy, you do your job, but it doesn't come with all of the stress that it is to be an artist.
The glitz and the glamour and all that stuff.
Yeah, you can. We enjoy our blessed anonymity. We really do. You'll get a little spotlight time, which is fine. Yeah. But then when the show's over, you get to go home. And nobody bothers you. Nobody cares who you are in a restaurant, and that's just great. You know? You get to do all of this stuff, and it doesn't come with the baggage that it does. Artist life is very difficult. Mm-hmm. I could never handle it. I like being part of the band, hanging with the band. Another thing that is very different in road work is that I consider myself lucky that in the years that I did most of my bus travel across this great land of ours, there were no phones. We barely had Walkman at that point. And everybody would congregate in the front of the bus and talk. Oh my God. Talk to each other.
Wow. That's
new. Share cassettes of music. Man, have you heard this new, thing by so-and-so? And it could have been anything. It wasn't, country or bluegrass. A lot of jazz, we're very into great jazz music and incredibly cool music and some international. And you had such a feeling of family. Yeah. And now everybody's off in their different world. And it's not, for me, I'm very happy that I did it when I did it. Yeah. Because you got to create relationships with these amazing musicians for life. And I am still playing with people that I started working with 44 years ago.
Wow.
That we still go into the studio or at a gig. And at this point, you've got the Vulcan mind meld. You don't even have to, it's like numbering jokes in prison, 57, you told it wrong. You just look at each other and say, just do that thing, that thing, okay, great.
You did that time? Yeah, okay, that's good.
Whatever it is. Oh, guy, remember when we did? Yeah, great, we'll do that. And it's the unspoken language at this point when you're working with somebody for over 40 years. It's beyond family. It is just brainwaves, which is a beautiful thing.
Now, I grew up with Tammy Wynette.
Wow.
Okay? And, that was one of my dad's favorite artists in the whole world. And fantastic. She sort of looked like my mom. And I don't know what was there or anything.
Beautiful mom.
Yeah, God bless them. But you dealt with Tammy Wynette, so you got a story that you can share with the audience?
Only that I was lucky enough when I got off, when I finished with Kathy Mattea, because I was missing too many sessions around 96, 97. And the recording session just snowballed. It was like every day, all day. And everybody was recording and producers wanted something different. And I had been working for the great producer Jerry Crutchfield and Jimmy Bowen and people like that. And Crutchfield's guy, they all have guys who call you. Yeah, Jerry Crutchfield would like you to do a session. Okay. And his guy calls and he says, we got a Tammy Wynette session, a couple songs we'd like you to play on. And I was really nervous because, I knew, that this was a goddess of country music. This was not something to be tread upon lightly, and this was, and it was even, plus she was such a beautiful person inside and out, and the level of class was almost daunting. And I walked in and I was like, I hope I do good. And it went really nicely. I had a great time recording with her and in the session. And then shortly after that, there was a series that I don't know if CMT did it or TNN. It was called The Road. Mm-hmm. And this was happening in the 90s. And late 90s, and it was being filmed in I think it was Spartanburg, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And everybody was there. It was like Oh, there were different locations. That's right, because one was MTSU. But Tammy was on the show, and I was standing backstage. I was playing with Kathy Mattea at that time still, and so I was talking with Tammy because I'd worked with her, and she says, we don't have any background vocalists for this one song that we're going to do, and there were three of us standing there, and we were like, we'll be glad to provide background vocals because everybody sings in Nashville. You have to sing. It's like everybody in LA acts, everybody sings and writes songs in Nashville. And we got to put together a three-piece background vocal thing for her. And it's on the show. It's on the road from that season. No, it was only one season. It wasn't a season thing. And it was I couldn't believe I was standing there singing backgrounds for Tammy after playing fiddle on her record. It was fantastic, but such a class act, that it was such an honor to play with her. Yeah. And then, then the opposite side of not the opposite side of the coin, but in sharp contrast, those same people would call you up and say, hey, so-and-so's got a session for you, and it's Tom Waits. And I'm like, Tom Waits? Are you kidding me? Of course, I love Tom Waits. The piano has been drinking, my necktie is asleep. Who's still out there cranking it out, man? What a fantastic example of beat poetry meets jazz.
Longevity, man. Let me tell you.
Oh, or if they would call up and say, "Can you be here at 4:00? We have a Bon Jovi session." And I'm like, "Yeah, right, sure, that's funny." And you show up at 4:00, and it's Bon Jovi.
Wow.
And, that was, things like that. But
what did you do for Megadeth? I'm kind of curious.
Megadeth, Dave Mustaine wanted two things. First, he wanted a string quartet to happen, like in this moment in a song. The album was called "The System Has Failed," and of course, I love Mustaine and Megadeth. It's a fantastic band because I am a rocker at heart, or we all. But after that, it was a second day, and I get a call from the guy who says, Dave Mustaine wants to know, do you know what a shofar is? And I said, yeah, I know what a shofar is. I grew up in a Jewish home. That's the ram's horn.
Exactly.
That's what's used. As a matter of fact, here, wait, stay right there.
Holy crap.
Because, you don't have your shofar handy and ready. You can't play it, I actually bought this in the old city of Jerusalem when I went there. But this is, the deal. They, that supposedly, who blew down the walls of Jericho? They were using these things.
I don't know, but my grandfather would be killing me right now.
I know it. The walls of Jericho. So Mustaine, he wanted the sound of a shofar to open up this song, like out of nowhere. There's this doo. I was tickled pink because I used to blow shofar in synagogue when I was a kid. And my father taught me how to do it. And here he wants to put this into the song, and things like that have just, they make me smile and laugh forever, knowing that not only was this asked for, but we did it, and it's forever. It's on tape. It's like squeezing in things like in the Big and Rich song, Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy. There's a moment where I forget what the line is, but there's a giant kiss in the track. Right. And I just did that, while we were recording it. I was just, I was kidding around, but I have my microphone and I'm a wise guy. So I put this giant kiss as we were recording it, and it stayed there. And to this day, it's in the track, big time. And that makes me laugh forever.
See, not only are you a musician, a singer, but you're a good kisser, is what I'm hearing.
Well, so I'm told. I'm a wise guy. And I have my dad's sense of humor, but But I'm in, I've been in rooms full of wise guys who make me look like an amateur.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But you get into a room like, for instance, Marty Falle's band. Boy, what a room full of wise guys that is.
My gosh.
Don't let your guard down for a second. You should join us when you get a chance. You should come to Nashville and hang out when we record some of the new stuff and just chill with us. It'd be great to have you there.
I think it'd be an awesome thing. I think that'd be a good idea.
The players, Carl Miner on guitar, he just won like the international flat picking competition. Matt Menifee is the banjo player. He's out with what's the British band?
Come on.
I'll think of it in a second. But all incredible musicians. You would have a ball.
Mumford and Sons.
Mumford and Sons, right? So consider that an open invitation to come and hang.
I appreciate that, man. That sounds like a plan.
You'd love it.
Yeah. So I'll have to talk to my guy.
Talk to your guy. So I'll have our guy call you.
All that stuff.
Our guy would be Marty's wife.
Yeah, Amber. I think she's in charge, no doubt about it.
She's in charge, yeah. The lovely Amber. But yeah, we are constantly. Marty is a writing machine now.
I know. And it's crazy.
Now that he has, I'm so glad that we found his center, because that's what artists strive for their whole careers, is where is your center?
Yeah.
And then once you can identify who you are to yourself, you then have the freedom to create your universe, because you are the writer now, and you know who you are. And Marty found that, like when Billy Joel found that. Yeah. I remember, a couple albums into his career, and all of a sudden, it wasn't just that he was the piano man and this and that. He became the Billy Joel.
Yeah.
And it just it still flows out of him. It's amazing.
Second Street, man. That was
incredible records, man.
I was a kid. When I was a kid, I used to sit and listen to that on vinyl all the time.
Mm-hmm. Do you still have all your vinyl?
I got tons of it, but
me too.
I used to have all the Kiss records. I mean, you name it. I went through that whole phase of anything and everything on vinyl. I've told this story. My mom and I would go through the grocery store line, and at the end of the grocery store line was a vinyl record rack. And
get out of town.
She would be dealing with all of that, and I'd be like, so have I been good enough to get a record this week? She's like, yeah, go pick something out. So, $8-10, I'm sliding back in there I remember the day I saw Kiss Alive on the, and it caught my eye, and I was like, who are these guys? I need to hear this. So I grabbed it, and that was one of my favorite records. I think I still have that, but it's you learn through life what you really like, what really just turns that switch for you. And Jonathan Yudkin, it just seems to me that you have never found that one singular switch, that you're finding a room full of switches. And I don't know. You think you're ever gonna just settle into doing one thing, or no? I don't think so either.
It's always, as long as each individual job, whether it's a live show or a recording session, is a challenge,
right?
Then it's limitless as far as what can it be. I love creating an orchestra by myself. Yeah. It's always something new every time you do it. Maybe the violin I'm using that day has a different sound than the other days. Maybe I'm using an octave violin instead of a viola. For whatever reason, each one becomes that labor of love, and then it becomes that very satisfying moment as a musician for yourself. And as long as that can continue, I'll never get bored.
I don't think you will either. How could you? All these different genres of music that you've mastered. Well, kind of say you've mastered, but all these different artists. you know what each of them like. You know
You do.
what
You
makes
learn what they like.
each of them tick. Make them smile before they hit whatever they're doing. And I think that's the most important thing. I'm no music producer, but that's what I would want if I was, you know, uh, Jessica Simpson or Steven Tyler or somebody like that. You know, you got to find out what's going to make them work today. What's going to
If
make
you
that
can
happen?
make Cher smile,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
it brightens up your day as well. When you think that, today I made Jewel happy.
Yeah.
And, I love working with Jewel over the years. It's been great stuff.
I could make
One of
Cher
the
smile. Okay. I think I got
Oh,
that one figured
Jesus.
out.
What a delightful, cool, classy woman. Um,
Yeah, man.
One of the most terrifying things that I ever did was working for Mutt Lange
Really?
when I did some of the Shania records. And when we did Up, which was a amazing record that was released in 3 different genres. It was released as country, as pop, and as world music.
Really? I didn't know. I
Yeah.
didn't know about the third one. Okay.
And we recorded the whole project in Nassau because Mutt couldn't come in. And of course, Mutt produced, AC/DC and stuff like that. But to get into his world, that was like 2.5, 3 weeks of master's class
Yeah.
of being in an environment with, Paul Franklin and Brent Mason. A bunch of us went from Nashville to there just to work on like 18 songs, I think. And once you decipher what Mutt Lange wants in your brain, it makes you giggle. It simply makes you laugh with joy, with great joy, because I understand where the guy's coming from, and then you take it with you.
It's like going
And
to Rick Rubin's house with your shoes on.
oh, I would love to. I never got to meet Rick.
Wrong thing to do there.
Oh, yeah, right. I would love to maybe at some point have that honor, but
Oh man.
they're working in Mexican music has been a great eye-opening experience.
I bet.
Because these guys they grow up in it.
Yeah.
And I realize that, we do too as well, but I see more of it, of the influence of parents and family on your music, the push for young people to get into music at a very early age and to learn it and participate in it. And have you ever been to the Portuguese islands, the Azores?
No.
You know what that is?
Yeah, I know where it's at, but
This is beautiful.
never had that much change put back. So
yeah, if you ever get a chance to go to the Azores and the big island, San Miguel, there's one road that goes around the entire island, and there's villages on everywhere, like 50 villages on this road. Pretty big island, and small cities. I think they're more like villages, and each village has a symphony hall, and practically every child in every village is part of that town's symphony, because that's what you do.
exactly.
You learn, you play, you participate, you interact.
Yeah.
You don't have to be great. You have to be good enough. You learn, and the teachers understand what to teach kids so that they have learned enough to. Now, it's not going to sound like, the end of The Music Man, where Robert Preston, remember that movie? The 76 trombones in the big parade, where he's like he's a con man, but in the end, the orchestra has to perform for the parents, and it's horrible. And the parents are going, "That's my." It's so telling, It's so telling. It's the love of the parents and the want to see them participate in music and the arts and the humanities, whatever it is. To see their children participate in that kind of thing is such a joy for them.
It's like,
And
when I was growing up, the thing was, my dad was always playing the guitar, singing country music. And, I've told this story before. A lot of people Friday nights at our house, that was where you were. And everybody in town that was in that little clique of country music artists maybe music store owners and people like that. They were all sitting there on the porch with my father. No,
That's so cool. Was this in Savannah?
no, this was in Bristol, Tennessee.
Bristol, Tri-Cities. Wow.
Mm-hmm. The birthplace of country music, sir.
Did you ever go to a place called the Down Home Kitchen in Johnson City?
Yes, sir. Been there many times.
Played there a lot with Dillard. That was a cool room. I wonder if it's still open. Is it still open?
Yeah, it's just called the Down Home now. Ed Snotter owns it from Johnson City. He lives there.
That's great. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. I remember one time with Dillard, we drove out there and we decided, hey, there's a campground not far from there.
Yeah.
I'm going to camp while we play there for the weekend. So we play our gig Friday night, and I had set up my tent, and I drove out there. At that time, I had, oh my goodness, I had a Ford Pinto wagon. Do you remember Ford Pinto for a little while made it was the Pinto station wagon, had stripes and above the window, so it looked like a van.
Kind of funny looking, wasn't it?
Ridiculous. Called the pizza van. And pulled out there, got into my tent. I said, this is great camping. All of a sudden, we didn't have, weather alert, things like that. A monsoon rolls in, and I'm camped on a hill, and this tidal wave washes me away. Just jump in the back of the Pinto and close the door.
That's it.
God. But I love the Down Home Kitchen in Johnson City. That was fun.
Yeah, it's a cool spot, man.
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan Yudkin, it's been, we could do hours.
Let's talk more. I'm enjoying it.
Believe me, no doubt about it.
Thank you much for having me. I'm going to, I've been working at Abbey Road.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, you get the best jobs.
So I look forward to going back there on a regular basis now. It's happened a couple of times. And what an experience, no matter what music you like, to be in an iconic room like that. And the first session, McCartney came in and said, hi. He just poked his head in and he said, hello, you're in my house. This is my house you're here. I hope you're enjoying my house. He's a really funny guy. Things like that, you stay in this business and things just happen.
They do.
And again, I will say how to succeed in show business by outliving everybody, is part of it, and never give up. And if you have a passion, pursue that passion.
That's right.
Because there is a way to do it.
There is.
And I think that in the business now in the digital age that we're in, it's not as apparent to me, and I'm still going to be more old school in what I do and how I do it. But I think that young people now understand the route that you can take and the advantages that you have that we didn't have before. Yeah. So I hope to see a lot of great music.
Yeah, being able to market, I think, in today's world has been a huge thing for people who want to break into the industry. And, but there again, it's got to be good stuff.
It's got to be.
You're going to let people hear it. So, Jonathan, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, man.
I look forward to another conversation, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, man. Give me a yell next time you're going to be in Nash Vegas, and we'll maybe we can get out there and me and you and Marty can grab a bite to eat or something.
I would love to have your presence at a session.
Okay.
Just chill and enjoy and yuck it up with the rest of us. We would love to have you.
Thanks for riding shotgun with us this week on My Appalachian Home. Remember, life is what you make of it. We'll see you soon.